Hey, what's up, everybody? I just realized that I don't have the right settings done right now. I'm still in my recording settings. So, gonna shut this down, gonna change those settings. We're gonna be right back. Give me like 2 minutes. I'm just gonna go straight to live. There won't be a countdown. So, if you're here right now, let me know. But, yeah, just hang out for just, oh, I gotta change that audio too. So much happens differently when I stream versus when I... Yeah, okay, that's better. All right. Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 212th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. It is not going to be your normal D&D Discussions because Kage is not here today. So, because of that, we're going to do something a little bit different. I have not done a High Point Histories in a very long time, but I'll be completely honest, I had no ideas of what I wanted to talk about. I really had no idea what I was going to say about High Point, but it has been a while. So I figured I might as well open this up and take this opportunity to make it an AMA. So basically the opportunity for everyone out there to ask anything that they want, anything about High Point, about my setting, whether it's about calls that I would make, NPCs that I have, the deities, the histories, certain mechanics that I use there. I don't know, whatever y'all want. That is the topic of today. We're going to try to do it for at least an hour as long as questions are coming in. And then we might do some games, or I might just cut it early if nobody's here. But I wanted to at least try to make it D&D related because it's Monday and that's what we always do. So no review, but we are making it D&D related. Another thing I'm going to be trying to do, I want to get y'all set up, but before that, or after that, I'm thinking we are going to open it up as well to TikTok. So I'm thinking I will go live on TikTok as well and see how that's going to fare. See if we can get some more questions. Who knows? Yeah, that's good. That's good. So we'll let everybody trickle back in. I know I had a little bit of a rough start there. I was at 30 FPS, but when I'm streaming, I like to be at 60. So we'll be, but I'm doing two cameras now. I got two cameras right here, so I got to remember which one I'm looking at. That's TikTok and or that's Twitch. That's TikTok. Soul, what is going on? You are the second number one. We were the second first we've had. All right. So get you in. How you doing? How you doing? All right. So we'll give everybody another minute or two to trickle in from Twitch. We'll get all that set up. Excuse me. Get your questions in now, because if we get a list of questions, we can just kind of roll into this. So let me know from Twitch if you have any questions, then we'll go live on TikTok. And then as those questions come in, we'll just start rolling with it. Like I said, I'm hoping to make this at least an hour if I can. But if we can't, then we'll get into some games if anybody is actually watching me. And if not, I'll just bail because I didn't know what to do today anyway. So we're going to try this though. So yes, again, AMA today. So if you were trying, if you want to know anything about High Point, NPCs, deities, anything, let me know. Actually, you know what I can do as well? I mean, it's probably not going to matter. But I'll do that. You know, no, it's not going to matter. We don't get enough traction in here anyway, so. All right, there we go. Yes, High Point history. So basically, it's been a while since I've done High Point histories. I didn't have anything to talk about today. I kind of just it's been a long weekend. I did like a 3-day, 2-night, 10-mile hike this weekend, but it was a lot of elevation. So I'm kind of wrecked. Kage isn't here today because dealing with IRL stuff. So I figured High Point Histories is a good safe bet, but I kind of wanted to open it up to AMA. So whatever questions y'all might have about how I run the game, calls that I would make, you know, kind of the same thing about, you know, Ask DM Vortex in the Discord, same kind of concept, but it's all going to be specifically focused to what I would do in High Point, whether it's, you know, a historical relevance, places, people, NPCs, deities, what have you, just anything you want. Just you can flood the chat with questions. I'll get to them as we go if I have enough questions. But I kind of want to at least have an hour of content. But coming up here in about 5 minutes, I'm going to go live on TikTok and see if I can get any of my my followers over there to maybe engage as well. Oh, that's Soul starting out with a good one. Let's go. Actually, you know what I should do? Depending on how fast these all come in, maybe I should take note. That's all right. Yeah, that's a good one coming right into play. Okay. So who of all your players is your favorite? Okay, so who of all your of the playable PCs? So not my PCs, but out of all the players, who's the favorite PC that's ever played with me? Okay, that's a good one. Okay, I'll let's see, keep them coming in, and we will just get to them as we go. It's not going to be like a question as they come up. I'm just going to try to again, I'm just going to try to chit chat tonight, and then I'll just interact with people as we go. But I don't know, it's been a while. I like talking about High Point. It's just I didn't have a specific topic I wanted to do, so why not let y'all figure out the topic, right? And there's so much that you can ask about. Like, it's basically just how I play the game. So we'll figure that out. I don't have a gaming shirt. I'm slacking here. You see? I'm fucking slacking here, y'all. There, how about that? My actual D&D shirt. That looks better. Oh. All right. Ooh, another good one. Soul coming out with some strong questions today. That's good. Like it. All right. Yeah. All right. We're doing pretty good. Oh, it's such a small shirt, though. Kind of feel like Star Trek level. Like every now and again, I gotta. All right. So, okay, it's been a few minutes. Let me go live on TikTok, and we'll get this figured out. Get this figured out. Oh, you know what it is? It needs to go. There we are. There we go. Come on. I can do this back. I promise I can do it backwards. Ha 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 ha. Think. Maybe. We'll figure that out. Okay, cool. Greetings, gamers of TikTok, and welcome to MisfitGamersStudios live stream. Today we are doing an AMA all about my realm of High Point. So if you have any questions, if you've ever wanted to know anything about how I run things, how I make calls, the NPCs, the deities, anything about the realm that I make, you let me know. We are just kind of collecting questions, so pop them in the chat and we'll get started here soon. I'm just getting things tidied up a bit. As you can see, there we go. Not bad. All right, so with another one. Oh, that one's gonna be a complicated one. Okay, that one's gonna be a complicated one. I'm glad I'm getting these in early. Thank you so much for sending those in. Questions are extremely important, and we want those in at all times. All right, so TikTok is live. We are good over there. Soul's coming in hot with questions over on Twitch, which is fantastic. Do I even... Okay, let me double check and see if I can get YouTube chat figured out too. Because I should be able to figure or to get them out here too. That's not the one I need. Gosh. Okay, so here we are. We should be getting something. There we go. Chat will appear here when your stream goes live, but we are live. See, this is why I don't like the YouTube integrations, because I am live on YouTube, but it is not showing me. Soul coming in hot with so many questions. We will get to those soon. We have 4 questions on the bucket now. Okay, so I wait, hold up. We have 3 viewers on YouTube right now. That's fascinating. How do I get chat into OBS? Why? Okay. I am not getting it. I am live though. Why are you not integrating a chat window? Reactions, timestamps. Is chat off for some reason? Is that what's going on? Let me Okay, let me see if I have something wrong with YouTube chat. Maybe I have it turned off somehow. Oh, is that the problem? Was that okay? That should have fixed it. I think we fixed. Did we fix YouTube finally? Maybe. Okay, that's all good. That's all good. That's. Yes. On. Yes. Yes. Okay. I think I fixed that. I want to say I did. Okay, we'll see if I get anything from YouTube chat. I'm hoping that I do. Let's hope that YouTube chat actually shows up. I'm just gonna pop out YouTube chat here, and we're gonna see if they ever pop up at any point. Okay, oh, Soul is rocking in with some more questions. What was the last one? What was the wildest? Okay, so you have other ones. Has there been anyone to have made you? This is great. This is fantastic. This is what I was hoping for. Okay. So let's get into it. We got some questions. Let's see. A breaking. Okay. Oh, all right. Now I can go back into chat if we get any more, but at least that's the ones I'm going to go with. So let's start with that. I hope I fixed YouTube chat. If anybody happens on Twitch, if you guys can go check either YouTube or Twitch, TikTok, that would be great, just to make sure everything looks as good, if not better. Try again. We are live. I don't know what you want, YouTube. I am live. I don't know what it wants, but anyway, if anybody has the opportunity to go, let me know from Twitch if YouTube and or TikTok looks and sounds fine, but I honestly don't know what's going on with TikTok chat. I turned on comments. I don't know what else I need to do in order to get chat to work. As far as I can tell, it should be on. Yeah, so unless someone can test it and tell me that there's an error, I don't know. But let's get to these questions because I'm actually really excited for some of these, and we have quite a bit to go. So, starting out with question number 1 for High Point. I guess I should probably do a quick little overview of what High Point is, other than my setting. So with High Point, it is primarily based off of the old AD&D Second Edition Forgotten Realms franchise. However, I've made high-end modifications due to a lot of other, I guess you would say, pop culture references, other IPs that I've taken influence from. So an amalgamation of a lot of different things. I've looked at a lot of different TTRPGs, taken various rule sets to just build upon the overarching storyline and world setting that I have. So it is no longer just a second edition D&D game. It really is its own TTRPG with just a lot of influence from pretty much everything else that I've ever enjoyed, of course. But yeah, so it's heavily influenced by the concept of crystal spheres, and I know that's been ditched for a long time now, but I used to really, I mean, I still do love that concept of this endless ocean of crystal spheres that essentially was a way for it to be written that anything and everything that people create does exist all in the same universe if you take into account what each crystal sphere actually meant, and which, you know, what they represented in themselves and in the greater D&D universe. So for me, that was great. Okay, so I do see Twitch or YouTube chat over here. Nice. Oh, people who've been subscribed to the channel for less than 20 minutes can no longer chat. Oh, interesting. Thank you, Soul, for letting me know that. Let me go and see if I can change that, because I don't think that's going to be a really good thing for the channel. So I will go and update that on YouTube. Thank you so much. All right, and then we will get into those questions. Oh, let's interesting. So what do I have to change in order for people to impressions? No. Here we go. No, that's comments. See, comments are different. Okay, but okay, so trying to find where those settings are. I don't know where the settings would be for that specifically. See, I was, okay, so that talks about live chat. Okay, wait, so this one here, that's post in my community. So that one says I can change post in the community based off of subscription time. But I have no idea. If anybody knows where I can change that in YouTube, let me know. Where I can change it to where it's more than 20 minutes of subbed to chat, because I don't see it. Subscribe. Where do I change that though? I don't see anything about subscriber only chat or as far as I can see, everything says anybody can chat. Okay, do I have to go into here? No restrictions. No, none there. No. Okay. Comments on. Who can comment? Anybody can comment. That's comments, but where's live chat? So, there we are. Holy shit, found it. I think we did it. YouTube should finally be back. YouTube chat finally is actually done. Anyone? Yes. Okay. So that should be fixed now. Finally. At least I hope so. I really hope that that's been turned on. All right. Success. YouTube is finally solved. We have figured out how to get YouTube. Now I just hope that YouTube chat comes in to OBS. I still don't know if that's going to happen, but I do have YouTube chat over here. Twitch chat is now live and going, so everything looks good so far. All right. All right, cool. So let's get into these questions because we do have a list so far submitted and we will hopefully get some more submitted here soon. So, boom, let's go. So question number 1. I'm finally ready to get into this. So, who of all of my players is your favorite PC that has been in High Point? Oh, okay. Okay, there's been a lot. I've had a lot of players who've made a lot of different characters. So, how do I quantify that? Because I don't know if there's a simple answer. I don't know if there's an answer for just one. Man, they all I don't want to say that they all, but there's very specific players, or there's very specific characters that players have made, right? Like even just between Vixie and Kage. Obviously, Vixie has some of the most characters of any of my players, but one of hers in particular, her main character, is I would probably say her character is my favorite overall in general. As if I had to choose one, it's probably her character, mainly because she's had the most impact. She has the largest primary storyline and plot line that really has direct effect to the world, and she's done the most. Every time I game with her, she ends up having the most interactions and does the, she really just changes the world the most with how she thinks and what she does with it, and the way that she interacts with the PCs and everything, or the NPCs. So if I had to choose one, it's hers because she progresses the overall plot, and the progression of High Point. But there are others that have made characters that in their own right I hold as favorites because of what they represent or what they could be. But if I have to choose one, it's Vixie's main character. She has the most potential to inflict the most change on High Point overall. And I think that to me, it's not that it's more important that players make characters that can do that, but it's the level of dedication that she's had and the amount that she's done to get to that point. It's not like I just handed her, you know, gameplay that allowed her to do that. It's what she's done with what she was given, and how much she was able to drive her plot points and her campaign through different storylines and through different regions, to the point that by her being there and her doing stuff and the things that she did drastically changed how I will play those NPCs and those locations in the future. Most of my players tend not to have that great of an impact. They'll have an impact on, say, one NPC every now and again. But Vixie's character tends to have a lasting impact on most places that she goes. So it's the most fun for me because when she plays, I get to see the most growth out of my realm than anything else. So I really do enjoy seeing that. Yeah, so I would say, and that player or the character is named Ness. So Vixie's next character is probably my favorite. God, there's so many though. There's so many. I'm just thinking back to this. It's like, I mean, Kage has a few. I've had a few players that don't play much anymore, but their impact and they're just their gameplay has been really interesting. But that's more about the player itself. Yeah, character wise, I don't know. I also just really like how Vixie plays Ness. Ness has a very unique attitude towards the world and has a very unique growth pattern. I really do enjoy the way that Kage plays, and I like his character's growth, but they don't, while the growth is great for some of the NPCs in the realm, it's not as great of a character for me as a DM. Like, it's great for in-game, but it's not as impactful out of game as I would say like Ness is. So hopefully that answers that question. I like that one. All right, so let's talk about question number 2. Actually, I'll delete these as I go, just so I don't get mixed up at where I am. All right. Any location that your players have been that is your personal favorite? Oh, my personal favorite. That's interesting. So I'm going to assume that we're talking about I'm going to assume that this question is not, have they gone to one of my favorite places in High Point? I'm going to assume that question is more derived of all the places they've gone, which is your favorite? And that is very difficult because they've gone to 2 places in particular that are my favorite for different reasons. One of the places is more of my favorite for its in-game relevance. The other is my favorite for, I guess it's out-of-game relevance. So there's one place called Septim's Tier that is kind of been the center point for Ness's campaign and a lot of other campaigns. It's been usually the starter place for a lot of players, and it's a big deal for the larger story, but otherwise is just a normal, innocuous, just run-of-the-mill, out-of-the-way place that isn't really spectacular in any particular way or reason. But Septim's Tier holds a lot of secrets, holds a lot of clues, is very enriched with unique things that happen that, you know, players are allowed to interact with. But overall, it's kind of a place that people are meant to touch and go, because even in-game lore says that you're not really wanting to draw attention to here. So I will say that that's my favorite place because of the layers that I've put into the story and what it means, the symbolism, as well as how it connects to a lot of my different players' storylines. A lot of them have either started or passed through Septim's Tier for one reason or another, and it's a bit, you know, bit important. So I will say that that's my favorite one for its in-game relevance. Now, there's a second place that Ness has been, Vixie's character, a lot, and it's probably been one of my favorite places out of game to design, to think about, and even to play when she was there. That place is called Gold, and it's a incredibly fortified, basically a kingdom in and of itself. It is a multi-layered fortified kingdom that has exterior walls, has 2 layers of exterior walls that are nearly 25 miles apart. So there's essentially just 2 massive layers, and this kind of just dates back to the ancient wars when, you know, that really wasn't a matter of concern. But again, this was an ancient kingdom that had been taken over and is basically now its own self-sustaining town. Has those 2 inner walls that are themselves 25 miles apart. The cities on the outer level, the cities on the first inner ring, and then the entire city on the middle in the inner city. Each layer designing how it works, why it works, the history of it, how it is completely self-sustaining, and what it represents for both the kingdom that it's in, but the surrounding kingdoms, was one of my favorite places to design and figure out how it was going to be impactful to the gameplay. A lot of the times when I build places, I try to think of how it's going to be interactive wise, how it's going to mostly make sense, and how you're going to actually tangibly interact with it. But this one, I had a lot of fun really trying to figure out not just how my players were supposed to interact with it and how they were going to have opportunities, but how those opportunities were really going to be impactful to the game. This is a very important place, and the difficulty level of getting in is so high that I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a guaranteed game-winning achievement, but I also needed to ensure that it was such an achievement that felt game-changing. So it's such an interesting place, because designing a place that is self-sustaining, that is a world-renowned location, but is also known to be essentially a hub for the best minds of every profession. So this is a place where the best of the best congregate and live and innovate and discover. So then you have to think about, well, if these are already the best, how do you, like, if someone's already the best fighter, how do you protect that person, right? So there's interesting, like, it was just very interesting to understand how the relationships worked, how the diplomacy worked, who controlled what, how it was physically designed, how it was, you know, designed on a societal scale. Each area, you know, was kind of assigned. There was like different zones on the inner city, and being able to figure out why each of those were important, what each of their responsibilities were, and how the player could interact and use them, was one of the most engaging builds that I ever did in High Point. So yeah, I would say that out of game, Gold was probably my favorite. In game, Septim's Tier has to be my favorite for its relevance to a lot of the story and a lot of what's happening in the world. So yeah, good question. See, another question came in, so I'm gonna add that to the end. All right. So next question. What is your wildest "this could be crazy" thought while making High Point? Okay. This would be, what is my craziest? What is my wildest? This would be crazy. To be completely honest, High Point's creation. If you're talking about the absolute craziest idea, the inception of High Point, using the Forgotten Realms history in order to utilize, and again, you know, my concept of this is all based on the inspirations that I've had from different media and different pop culture outlets. So the fact that I was able to find in my mind, I mean, I don't know how clear cut it could be, but being able to narratively place why the events of Forgotten Realms and the events of the Shadowfell led to the Cataclysm, and led to the discovery of High Point, and led to the creation of what is High Point and how I can, how that allows me to pull from the various aspects and the various IPs. I think that was my craziest idea of trying to figure out how to explain the entire Cataclysm in a way that would still allow me to retain a lot of the value from Forgotten Realms while still being able to change what I wanted to, mechanics wise, to still be in line with the story. Now, if we're talking about, well, okay, so that would probably be my craziest like lore idea. I'll break this down into a couple different layers because I don't know exactly what specific you wanted. So that's layer one, would be in lore wise, it would be the Cataclysm. Now, if we're talking about, and that's something that actually still happened. Like, that isn't something that I didn't do because it was so crazy. That was actually something that I intentionally, that still did happen. So if we're going to talk about something that didn't happen, but this was a wildest, this would be crazy. So, okay, I got it. So one thing that did not happen that could have happened was, still technically could, but it was mainly so rare that it was only one time for one player and they didn't end up taking the bait. So because High Point's open realm, there are no guaranteed campaigns, so everything is basically an optional side quest if it doesn't appeal to your main overarching story. So one opportunity that Vixie's character Ness, or no, I'm sorry, it wasn't Ness, it was Sylvanas, her other character, Sylvanas. So Sylvanas is right now traveling with an NPC called Sid. This is highly modeled after the Final Fantasy Sid. So he has an airship. She's now part of the crew. And at one point they had the opportunity, because they got I guess you could say an update, or he has basically, my version of Sid has a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Why am I'm stalling for words right now. Sid has a lot of informants, and he got some information about a couple different things. And one of them was he got updates about activity in a nearby mountain that was indicative of a rare and has not been seen for a very long time occurrence that was theorized to still potentially be around. And this thing is called a nest. So they got wind of it and they had an opportunity to go do it, but other things happened and they decided that there were other pressing matters, and so they didn't go figure out what these reports were. So the reports indicated that in these mountains there was a nest. Now, a nest in my realm is a theoretical, like kind of bad omen. And essentially because the area used to be, or not the area, but because in the old ancient times, there were more dragons. They used to be more prevalent, and their hordes were everywhere. It is believed that there were some that were so powerful that even though those dragons are long since gone, their ancient hordes still hold some lingering power. And the strongest of these may end up calling multiple young dragons into it. And some of these can be so powerful that the power itself kind of lulls the dragons into pacifism, so they don't battle over it, they just start to congregate. And this can be devastating, because if they're congregating, then they are working together, they become more devastating to the lands that are outside. And then there's a lot of prophecies and a lot of things that consider this just a bad omen, a sign of things to come. There's also a lot of rituals and spells that can utilize something like this. So typically, it's a very rare occurrence. It hasn't happened in a couple hundred years, but there were some signs that there might be a nest nearby. So they were supposed to go and investigate it to see if this was truly happening, because this is something that they would want to prevent from happening or from getting too big. What was going to end up happening, it was not going to end up being a nest, but it was going to end up being a hydra. and I was going to have them face off against a Hydra. So I thought that would have been pretty fucking cool. And it really good. It was right when they were about, I forget what level they were at, level 6. So it was going to be a young Hydra that they were going to battle against. And I thought that was going to be pretty fun. Because there was enough of them. They had some pretty powerful NPCs with them. It shouldn't have been too difficult. But unfortunately, again, they did not go that. So there's two options for you. One that did actually happen, like that my actual wildest, this would be crazy, that I actually did use. And another, this would be crazy, that didn't get used. It was going to be this idea of thinking that they were going to come across a nest, which is essentially just a place that pulled in multiple different types of dragons. And then it was going to turn out to be a Hydra as a fight. I thought that was pretty fun. Good question. Fantastic question on that one. I like that one. You know, actually, this might be a great episode to clip and just do these questions for clips. These might be good little episodes or little videos. All right. So next question. What was your wild... Oh, wait, let me just answer that. Oh, I guess I got that question twice. Did I accidentally copy the wrong question? Okay, I guess I just did that one twice by accident. Okay, so next question. Has there been any moments in High Point that made you go, maybe I shouldn't have done that? Oh, this is an interesting one. Has there been any moments in a High Point that made you go, maybe I shouldn't have done that? So, okay, so we're going to ignore old High Point because there's plenty of times in much older High Point that, yes, I would have definitely said that was the case. However, in more recent times, there are things I regret doing, such as being like, if I were in... Yeah, okay, so those aren't a good example, because there are things that I regret doing, but not because I did them, but because of the way that they were done. So this is like, I'm assuming this is kind of like, you know, did I, you know, sick an enemy on them that I shouldn't have, or something like that. It's so difficult because the way that I run the game, everything's so on the players, but a lot of the times I try to give my players a way out. So I'm trying to think of like, what have I done that I just was like, yeah, that probably wasn't like the best way to do that. Okay, so this is probably not going to answer the question the way that you want, but I am going to answer the question the best way I can. So I'm okay, again, I read this question as, is there any moments that made you go, maybe I shouldn't have done that? I'm assuming again that that's more of a, I made a mistake, I sicked something on the party that I shouldn't have. And if that's the answer that you want, it's going to take me some more time to think, because I don't know if there's ever been a situation that I felt bad for that. But there is something that I did as a DM that I do feel, I guess you could say it was a waste. And maybe it was just not the way I should have done it. But at one point I had a player who wanted to accelerate into advanced level gaming and wanted to go into higher level gaming, without actually having to rank up through it. So I did find a way to make it work and to in-game, in-story, make it actually follow through. However, I don't think that was really made clear to the player about what it was, because I think that they had expectations of the game and expectations of how the game would be played, that what they got was not what they wanted or what they were expecting to get. And while that was kind of the point, just because I tried to explain that there were, there was more to it than just picking things and being, at a higher level. But at the same time, the way in which I did it, I felt could have been done. I feel like the way that I did it was very in line with how my world works and how the setting works. But I wish I would have used that on somebody else for a different reason and spent more time figuring out a different way. Like it would have been better for me to just give them a pre-written character that's like an NPC rather than buffing them in the way that I did. So I will say that that's one thing that I probably say that, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I probably shouldn't have accelerated their character. I probably should have given them a pre-gen NPC that was at advanced level, then basically trying to put them in a position that they weren't ready for. Good question. I haven't thought about that situation in a long time, but I think that's a great lesson for most DMs to learn, is always take a second and rethink what you're going to do and what the impact of that's going to be. I gotta step away. I'll be right back. All right. So next question. Thank you for that one. All right. Any sneak peeks into what's coming up next for High Point? Well, since Vixie isn't home and she's not watching the stream right now and she doesn't watch the VODs, yes, we can talk about this. Any sneak peeks? So one of the things that Vixie is involved in right now is a major turning point. It is what I call one of the points of flux in High Point. Adopted off of the Doctor Who concept, where there are some things that are guaranteed to happen, some things that are in flux based on what the players will eventually choose. So I think about, the branches and how that's going to happen, and she's coming up to several of them, several big ones actually. So I've talked with you all before about how music works in my realm and how it's so important and how it's the most powerful form of magic. So a lot of the times, this usually comes with kind of like a cinematic cutscene. The music's used to, basically both in and out of game enhance the situation and show off. It'd be like a show of power. So Vixie is planning for, basically she is in a situation where she is being chased. She's been found and she has about 3 months to fortify her hometown before a necromancer comes and basically tries to get information from her one way or the other. And this is a very important part in the story, because not only has this kicked off a big spin, because this person has kind of been a general of a big faction for a long time, and this is his big push to basically become a lich. It's been known that he wants to be a lich for a long time. So this is like, a lot of things have happened. She recently killed his apprentice. So there's just a lot of things that are all happening, all in line. All the dominoes have fallen, and he's just decided, I'm playing all of my cards. So he's kind of placed people all over the kingdom, and they're all kind of activating at once. And this is just one of many. He's kind of using that as a distraction, hoping that she won't be able to get too much backup, but also that, if he just does it all at once, hopefully he gets the most out of it. So he's basically making his move to lichdom. And he's going to personally be overseeing the forces against her, while all of his other forces are everywhere else. Now, she doesn't necessarily know that, but she does know that he's coming after her. So the big thing here is she has an opportunity to stop his advancement. But the big deal about why it's happening here in her hometown, because her hometown basically hides an ancient vault that has things that could aid him. So this vault, the reason why he's here is not only for revenge, but this vault has the highest chance and the highest probability of allowing him his goal to make lichdom. So he is putting most of his effort here, but he's doing other things in the background because if this fails, he has backups. So he's on the way, she's prepping for that, and she knows that he's coming. But it's a pivotal moment because if she fails and he gets the vault, because she knows where the key is. And if all he has to do is find her body, it doesn't matter if she's dead or alive, because he's a necromancer, he assumes that he's going to be able to get the information from her no matter. So if she loses, he gets into the vault, he becomes a lich. That's one major branch that has a chance. But on top of that, if the vault opens, a lot of other people are going to be very interested in what the things that are in this ancient vault. Also, there was something long ago that was trapped in the vault. And while they weren't an immortal at the time, they were extremely long-lived, and this vault contains things of unimaginable power. There's a very, very good chance that the thing that was locked inside figured out how to become immortal. So this vault becoming open opens up a huge can of worms, not just to let this guy become a lich, but for a bunch of, ancient magical items to be unleashed into the world, this ancient enemy being released. So all of this stuff is basically kind of world-ending cataclysmic level stuff. Ironically, when we talked about the 5e in Discord series, where I talked about how that Discord was in 5e, but it took place in an alternate future, that alternate future started because the vault was opened. And that was one of the major keys is, again, I talked about this in the histories, is if they had finished that campaign storyline, if they had gone to the place that was the main attractor in that campaign, it was supposed to be this vault, and they were going to find a bunch of their other characters' items in there to kind of show the players that your other characters failed, and this is the future that happened because of it. So not really this is the future that's going to happen, but here's little hints that if your characters failed, this is the future you'll see. So there's a big opening here for a lot of stuff to happen. And a lot of that can include those like cinematic moments with music, because a lot of those NPCs, like the one in the vault and everything, those all have those kind of moments. And then the companion that she travels with has a secret that they've been hiding for a while, that could lead to one of those moments as well. So very, very, very much at a crazy crossroads with this particular battle that's coming up. We have 2 more gaming sessions. Vixie has to do the final stages of planning, and then the next gaming session, it will actually happen, and she will be under siege, and we will find out if the vault finally gets opened. And it's fucking crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Was that a good sneak peek? Do you need more? Oh, that was a good sneak peek for you. But yeah, that is what's happening to Vixie's character's Ness right now. And it's pretty crazy, because whatever happens, it's going to change everything. No matter what, this changes everything, because if he fails here, he's a general of one of the major thieving guilds, and I say thieving guilds because they're all considered a thieving guild, but they all have different specialties, and he's one of the generals of the Assassin's Guild. So if he doesn't succeed, then he's basically played his hand. And if he doesn't succeed here or anywhere, not only is he kind of out of the game, but one of the generals of the major syndicates is down. So that's also going to create a disruption of power. So there's a lot of stuff going on with this one particular scene that's about to happen. And yeah, there's a lot of really cool NPCs that Vixie has not met yet that she has a chance to meet if things go bad. Like, I don't really like the concept of like the Deus Ex Machina of things where I don't plan things to guarantee success, but there are moments that I have ready if certain things line up that make sense narratively for those that kind of savior moments, right? But again, it's not planned for, well, I won't let her fail until a certain point, or, oh, they can't fail, at this specific task. It's just more of a, I don't look at it as a, here's the criteria for them not to fail. It's more of a, if certain things line up, then they won't fail. But otherwise, there's a much larger, margin for failure, right? Like the particular secret is this NPC has the opportunity to essentially call in reinforcements. Now, this is not something easy. It is a one-time thing, and so far it has never been even brought up. Vixie's character doesn't even know about it, but it's not something that, for me as a DM, I know that the NPC has it. Now, because I'm not a big fan of Deus Ex Machina, it's not like I look at it as this is just going to be something I'm going to pop off if they start to lose. But I also know that it's not something that can easily be done. So if in the middle of battle that NPC gets taken out, that option's gone. And that's how I play it, right? Like the option is not just something that they can just do. It would be something that in a dire situation, they would have the moment to, then it could happen. I mean, you can basically call it like a ritual. It would take some time. And I like that because it's not really an easy situation to get into where that would benefit them. But if all of the right things happen, there is a chance that even at the worst case, they start to lose. If she triggers all the right things, she still has a chance to get reinforcements. And that's the way that I like to balance that out, right? Is it's not a, oh, don't worry, you're always going to get saved. It's more of a, if you can fail enough, but in the right way, you have a chance to get saved. But if you fail too much in the wrong way, it doesn't matter. It's still a fail. If that makes sense. So there you are. There's your sneak peeks into what's coming into High Point soon. All right, and so far this is our final question right now. So if you have any more, you let me know. But how many items from the homebrew reviews have made an appearance in High Point? Unfortunately, none. As much as I've added, I haven't had a gaming session yet where a particular review item that I've adopted, I've only adopted a couple of them, but I have not had them have a chance to make an appearance. And I will double check that actually. I will make sure that that is the truth. I will look at the leaderboard real quick and look at our 10 out of 10s. But I'm fairly certain I have not had a chance. Correct. There's only 3 items I've taken from the reviews, and none of them have had an opportunity, excuse me, to show up yet. It will be some time. Actually, out of them, 2 of them have a chance. Double or nothing is a feat that's going to be more likely. I mean, I might throw that on an NPC at some point, but that's more of something that players can have. And then the Snow Serpent and Fabrifolk are also things that have yet to be discovered, but I also haven't fully fleshed out where and how those interactions are going to work. So that's why those ones haven't fully developed in yet. So yeah, unfortunately, that was not much of an answer because that question went fast. But yeah, there you have it. That was the AMA so far. If there's any other questions, you let me know. It kind of brought us to the top of the hour, at least. That's not too bad. If this doesn't work out and we don't have anything else, I can always switch over to games, which is totally fine. I just wanted to give this AMA a try. I also have been wanting to do more live streams on TikTok, so I wanted to try to get out here and see if any of my followers out there would join and chit chat with us. I'm a little bit, disheartened that I didn't see. I think I saw like 2 of my followers pop in, but no one said hi. So maybe I just need to do something different for TikTok. Maybe because I'm on horizontal, maybe there's just something there, or I don't know, maybe I just need to do it more, but that's fine. Didn't work out this time around, but that's okay. We keep trying. I mean, we've been on for almost an hour, and oh yeah, we actually went almost an hour with all the questions. That's pretty nice. But let me know. Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, anybody else have an AMA for High Point? Do you have any burning questions about how I do things? Again, this can be anything from the lore, types of NPCs, histories, deities, how I make calls, how I run combat, anything you want to know about High Point before we move on. You let me know. I am here for your entertainment. All the knowledge can be yours for the low, low price of asking me a simple question. That's all you need to do. Ask a question. Let me know what you want to know about my realm. Well, how do I do things? We've had some great questions. Soul, again, thank you so much for all of the great questions. Starting out strong too with my favorite PCs. That was a great question to start out with. All right. So we will let it get, I will give it 5 more minutes to let questions come in. 5 more minutes. I will probably kill TikTok chat. And we'll probably just move over to some games. I mean, I don't know. Soul, are you the only one in chat right now? Is it just you? Can't actually, I can never actively see who's just in chat. I don't know why. It doesn't let me just, that. I do like the idea that I should be able to seamlessly switch to IRL chat, which would be kind of cool. Like if I ever wanted to switch from this to a like a walk around the house chat or go do a cooking stream, I could just grab my phone and technically just take you guys with me, which would be kind of cool. Which NPC has become the party's favorite? Essentially, what NPC has the party adopted? Interesting question. Okay. Okay, so Faction 5 hasn't really adopted an NPC just yet, so we're going to pause on that. So, one character kind of accidentally adopted a familiar. They accidentally got a familiar and kind of adopted it. But that's kind of a side character, doesn't really count. I mean, a familiar isn't really like an adopted NPC. So really, there's been only 2. Well, oh, actually, no, there's 3. No, there. Does that really count? I don't know if those count. I would say there's technically 3. I'm going to say that there's 3 that follow with this. So Vixie, her main character Ness, has grown a very fond attachment to the NPC that's been mostly with her for most of her campaign, called Lorana. And Lorana is her favorite NPC and probably is just as much of a cornerstone to the campaign at this point in the storyline. So she would probably say that she's adopted that NPC as basically this NPC needs to always be around if you asked her. So yes, Lorana would probably be Ness's adopted NPC that she would prefer to keep around. Now, with the Old Gods campaign, with Safia and Alo, now they started out with their backstory. They started out with a coachman that they, over time, really enjoyed the character of, and eventually adopted him. But that was kind of like part of the story, so I don't know if it's actually worth it. And then there's also a NPC that also they ran into that is kind of part of their storyline. Like, they technically met and released Apollo from prison. Yes, Apollo the god. And they technically, in order to do so, they kind of had to do like a contract thing that they weren't really sure what was it all about. So that's kind of part of the whole deal. but they did technically both in-game, like in-game, they kind of adopted him. But again, they're more like, the coachman is more of an NPC that they just have around and they really enjoy using him for, like being a chauffeur and a butler, but for the most part isn't normally around unless they're traveling. And Apollo was kind of a give me because it's part of the storyline. So yeah, I guess Lorana would be like the only true 100% NPC that players have truly like attached to and decided like, I need to have this NPC around at all times. I would say that that's probably the one. Yeah. Not bad, not bad. Anything else? Anything else? I mean, we finally made it to an hour on TikTok, so I'm happy with that. At least we gave that a try. Can't always be successful on your first go, but that's fine. I don't know, maybe just Mondays is just you know, a crapshoot day. Like, who knows? Maybe nobody cares about Mondays. My About Me on TikTok was approved, finally. Yeah, interesting that it doesn't show me as live on my TikTok. That's interesting. I am a lot. I am, yeah. It's so weird. It doesn't show me as live on my thing. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, cool. And then... okay, so that's how that looks. Not too bad. Doing some testing on TikTok just to see what it was about. What is something that any party member has done that made you check the legitimacy of the idea action? Something that someone has done that made you check the legitimacy. So that happens quite often, and I'm not, unless you want to like clarify more about what you mean. Like that happens a lot, but like there's a thing that I told you about called the scenario, and I've recently had a new player go through it, and they were the first one to ever nearly, they've gotten the furthest at almost fully escaping the situation. And they did something that literally took me, I had to pause, and for like 10 minutes I had to pull out my whiteboard and actually do math. Like they tried something so creative, and they explained it in such a way that I actually couldn't remember if that was one of the acceptable ways to get out. So I actually had to sit down, draw out the situation, and run the math to see if they would actually have succeeded with what they did. And I straight up did that for like 10 minutes. So that maybe is what you're talking about. But like when you say check the legitimacy of an idea or action, I mean, again, because I'm so open, a lot of the times my players are trying to be creative and do things that you wouldn't normally think of or wouldn't normally find in the book. So yeah, but that particular instance where they tried to use equipment, they tried to use items, and they did it in such a way that I actually didn't know immediately if it would work. So I actually had to figure out if I could run the numbers right. Tag me in the can't hit ultimate damage TikTok for seeing how legit stuff is. So I was thinking stuff like that. Can't hit ultimate damage. I don't remember off the top of my head which ones we're talking about, but just like the impressive builds. Okay, so if you're talking about like that, where someone tried to do something so weird with the stuff, I had to like check the rules and make sure that everything actually followed through. Has anyone ever done something that crazy? Yes. So I've had, it's usually in terms, okay, so I would say that most of my players that have ever tried psionics, that is a common one, because psionics have a lot of unique layering that you can do with the abilities, and there's a lot of ways. So for instance, one time, oh, okay, so here's an instance. So Old Gods campaign, Olo and Sophia, they needed to get to an artifact that was on a high pedestal that they couldn't get up to. So using psionics, they wanted to get up there using a combination of psionics. And the way that they decided to do that, I actually had to stop and check the rule sets to make sure that they didn't conflict. And essentially what they wanted to do is they were going to use one psionic to, I think it was equilibrium, was to change Olo's density to basically make Olo light as a feather. So he could basically float if you pushed him. And then the other psionic was technically only able to use telekinesis, but it was only able to lift a certain size of thing, but up to a certain weight. So what they wanted to do was telekinetically lift a piece of paper while Olo was standing on top of it. But they wanted to use the psionic of equilibrium to drop Olo's weight to nothing, to under 5 pounds. So the telekinesis on top of the paper would lift, and because Olo was less than 5 pounds, it would actually be able to lift and work. And I had to check the rules to make sure that there wasn't any weird conflicts with that because of the way that psionics works. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't, because it doesn't really require concentration or anything else like that. And I had to make sure that the way that the spell was intended to use, it didn't like certain spells will say you can only lift an item, and it kind of negates it with verbiage. So I had to double check that, but no, based off the verbiage, it did not restrict them from lifting an item with stuff on top of it, because that was kind of the idea, right? You could lift a tray that had items on it up to 5 pounds. So by the rule sets, they were able to double down on the psionics and actually essentially give him flight that was controlled by the psionicist. And this is kind of a concept that they've thought about later, is if they can do this at will, you know, they could do things like their own magic carpet, right? They could just basically stand on something, drop their body weight, and then fly, essentially. So yes, that would be an actual example of when I had to stop and figure out, were they actually using the rules correctly? And they were. And it was a fantastic situation to do that in. Perfect. Yeah. And that's, yeah, good. That's exactly what you were looking for. Because yeah, those are the situations that I love, is when they're trying to do something and it sounds like, wait a second, are you sure you can lift something with weight on top of it? And then, yeah, when you read the rules, you're like, it's not saying that it can't, it's just saying that it has a weight limit and a size limit. But if that thing has something on top of it, the idea is supposed to be able to, like, you know, again, if I can lift a plate, why can't I lift a plate with food on it, right? That's the idea. And as long as he was underweight, it made perfect sense. And so, yeah, they just kind of, you know, used a piece of paper to magic carpet Olo all the way up to the device, which, funny enough, ironically, there were 3 guardians. Each guardian had its own trigger. This is the funny part about this situation, is each guardian that I had its own, because again, this was a campaign that my players came to me to wanted to run, and they wanted to run a 2-person campaign with a bard and a psionicist. And so we got them to the right place and time for it. And this time they were trying to get this artifact, and it was basically on a large stone pedestal way up in the air, encased in glass, and it was just kind of floating there in the middle. So they used the psionics to float Olo up there, and try to retrieve it. But I think he also tried to use, he tried to use his musical magic as a bard, I think, to give him an advantage of something. So they used psionics, used bardic magic, via music, and then he went to physically touch the glass to like take it off to get to the artifact. The funny thing about that is when I had made this encounter, there are 3 guardians that can be activated, each by a different trigger. It was designed to guard against different intruders because, you don't think that, someone's going to come in here with, an arsenal. The triggers were magic, music, or no, I'm sorry, magic, psionics, and physical touch. And they simultaneously used all 3 at the same time. And they actually activated all 3 guardians at the same time, which is not something I had planned to happen. In fact, the reason why there were 3 is I had planned it so well that the hope was that the goal was that you were only ever supposed to activate 2 at a time. Because the goal and the hope was that you would activate 1, and then in fighting it, you would accidentally maybe activate another. And then by that point, you would have a kind of a handle on the situation. But no, they had to activate all 3 guardians at once, each targeting the specific effect. So one guardian was specifically a guardian perfect for magic users. So if it got activated by magic, they would be activated. One was great against physical users. So if it was physical, they would be activated. And then one was actually against psionics. So then if that happened, they would be activated. And it was crazy that all 3 got activated. But I will say their survival was a perfect, absolute perfect mixture of the dice tell the story and absolutely clever thinking. Because by sheer dumb luck, they survived long enough to stumble upon the solution to the problem, and they never had to fight. And that also might be one of the most impressive things any of my players have ever done, is solving the problem by accident, but solving it so effectively that they actually solved it without having to interact with it at all. And it was just absolutely mind-blowing watching them do that. Because they were basically in over their heads. There was no way that they should have been able to survive that. And I mean, we're talking about, an artifact of the gods here. This was not meant to be something that at such a low level they were trying to go after. But they did it with such, like, I'm still blown away with just how easily, like I'm sitting there just being like, this sucks, man. This sucks. You guys are going to die. And then I just sat there and rolled 1s. And it looks so embarrassing for the enemies to just be rolling 1s, but their characters being so helpless and nothing's happening. Their characters are so absolutely helpless against these guardians. And yet the guardians are doing absolutely shit. And then out of nowhere, they both just happen to figure out a plan. And that plan is exactly how I worked it in for them to overcome, because each challenge also had a way to be overcome. And it just so happened by dumb luck, they figured out how to overcome 2 of the guardians, and therefore figured out the other way to do it. Like, they actually figured out the 3rd way by stumbling across. Like, it was just dumb. It was so dumb, but it was just one of those situations where I'm like, that's how it rolls, though. That's how it rolls. Like, that could have been a TPK. That could have been the end of the game had I not been rolling 1s. But dice tell the story. Well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by rule of cool? Because it depends on how you look at what you define as rule of cool. Because I've always understood colloquially that the rule of cool generally means that the DM's willing to fudge the rules if it sounds cool. And I would say that in a traditional sense, you could say that, but in a high point sense, the rule of cool is more of a concept of that's how my game works, in the sense that I don't play rule of cool. I play if you know how to make it work, then you can make it happen, right? If you know the physics of the game, if you know how the game works, if you know how to interact with it, you are allowed to go beyond what the rules say are your limits. And it's not saying that you can do more. Like, you can't just say, well, it only says a D6, but I want to do, you know, a D6 plus 2. It's not about that. But if you want to be part of the story, the more part of the story you are, the more the world will react to it, right? And usually I tell like my new players this. There's nothing wrong with knowing what your weapon is, knowing how often you can attack, and knowing what your damage is, and then every round saying, I'm going to attack, and I swing my sword, and I don't hit, or I do hit, and this is how much damage I do. There is nothing wrong with that, and I will never penalize you for that. But there is a much bigger difference between you saying that and in different situations, you know, using the information that I've told you. Like, if I told you that you were up against a fighter who has a patch over his eye, and you say you see that and you want to use that to your advantage, so during this attack, you're going to feign to the side where he has his eye, but you want the attack to actually go back to where he can't see to gain an advantage. I'll have you roll it for your attack, but I might in my head go, in that situation, you're going to get a +1 because he's not going to expect you to do that. It may not work more than once because he's going to now be aware of that. But if you're willing to utilize the details I gave you to look for those moments, then I'm going to reward it. And that's the same thing. If you say something, I am going to pay very much close attention to that as a DM, because nothing is that hard set in stone. So when my players say things, I am taking into account all those small details in order to make the world react to it. And that to me could be seen as the rule of cool. But at the same time, I don't like this idea of this cookie cutter. I have an attack, it does this, and that's all I do. So I'm just going to go, this attack, it does it. This attack, it does it. This attack, it doesn't. That doesn't tell a good story. That doesn't feel good to play. And to me, that is what's caused 5th edition to be so mundane, in my opinion, so cookie cutter, so easy to replicate and reproduce, and why everyone has this entitlement, because it is exactly what it is. I do this attack that's on the paper, and this is the outcome. This attack, this is the outcome. This attack, this is the outcome, regardless of the story, in spite of the story, with no care to the narrative. It's this ability, this effect. And for me, while I understand that if you play that way, and sometimes the rule of cool, you're allowed to go around it, my philosophy is that this story and the narrative, and not just the moment, right? When I say that, it's not just, it sounds cool in this moment. I mean that if it works for the overall way that my realm works, that the narrative works, the story works, how your characters work, if you're utilizing the details the same way I am, and you are adding to that story, then there are going to be rule of cool moments that you can do that are going to give you things that are not necessarily mechanically on paper. And this is what Kage and I talk about. I gesture as if he's there. This is what we talk about a lot, though, is, or at least when I talk about it, and say that there are some rules that just don't need to be codified. There are some rules that don't need to be so strictly written down, because they're not meant to just be spammed or ability effect. Some things are just meant to be more in the moment. And that's why I call myself more of a traditional DM, because it's more about the story. It's more about the aggression of what's actually happening through your players or the character's eyes, and not so much did the ability on paper say, did I do the thing said I should do? And I don't like that mindset. I much prefer this idea that you know the basics and you know the repeatability of what your character can do, right? A spell or an attack is just something that you know by heart that your character can just do. But that doesn't stop you from being innovative, and it doesn't stop someone from being creative in the moment and being dynamic with whatever comes their way. And so when you give players that opportunity to be like, yes, you have an attack that every time you do that attack, it's going to have this outcome. But to me, that shouldn't mean that that's the only thing you can do. You should be able to learn how to use that in different ways. You should be able to be creative. I gave you the idea, but it's your job to take that as a tool and as a resource, and not just as like the guarantee. You know, for me, it's when players can get creative like that and learn that the ability is just there as your baseline, and the rest of the world still interacts with it. That's where I'm much more interested in how my players want to do things, right? I mean, yeah, you have an attack, but what's to say that you can't use that attack to bust open a barrel of oil, then to light it on fire, right? That's not something the game's ever going to tell you. The game in the book doesn't tell you that you can attack physical objects with your attack, right? But that's the kind of thing that as you learn how to utilize that, you know, there's different situations. And this is where I guess here's a good analogy of that. So let's talk about, you know, the game doesn't tell you you can attack a barrel of oil to break it open, right? But you can. But you could say the rule of cool, you know, allows you to decide whether you bust it open or poke a hole in it, right? You could say rule of cool is just letting the DM let you do that on a whim. Whereas when I say rule of cool is kind of baked into the concept, it's more of a, I want to use my attack to bust open this barrel, but then it's a, well, what weapon do you have? Because if you have like a rapier, you're only going to like probably poke a hole, if anything. But if you have a, you know, a warhammer, you're probably going to smash the entire thing to bits. So in those situations, I feel like for me, rule of cool is just baked into the how are you narrating it, and does it actually make sense that the baseline ability that you're trying to use, can it be used in the way that you want? You know, same thing for how you use ability checks, right? You know, if you want to do you know, if you're saying, hey, can I use a wisdom check in this situation versus an intelligence check? To me, that's not rule of cool. That's situationally aware. That's just understanding that in this situation, the rules say I should use intelligence, but if we're going to use it colloquially and say, but I'm more wisdom, and this is more of something I would have learned in life, not something I would have read about, I'm more inclined to be like, you know what, you're right. This is more of a street smarts kind of thing and not more of a bookworm kind of thing. You know, this is more of a gut intuition feeling, not a knowledge, I know this information kind of thing. And in those situations, even though the book might say it's an intelligence check, I might let the player convince me to do a wisdom check instead, because the details of this situation matter. But I don't necessarily think that needs a codification rule that says at any time you can swap intelligence and wisdom if XYZ, you know, if XYZ conditions are met. That's not what I want to do. I want to just let my players know that there is no codified rule. There's no guaranteed time this is going to work. What I want my players to know is it could work. So give it a try. I'm not always going to say, yes, that makes sense, you can do it. But I might say, yeah, but here's reasons why it won't work, but that's a good idea. Keep thinking that way. And that's what I try to get my players to do is the rules are, I don't know. I look at it as the rules are the foundation. They are the starting point, but the story is so much more important. And what you can do with those rules and those abilities within the story, I think is more important than following the rules to an absolute T. But yeah, again, I hope that answers your question of rule of cool. Do I use rule of cool? Probably. You could probably say I use rule of cool. You know, one of the areas that I say I will use rule of cool in is if your character's in a dire situation and you want to do something that's just completely out of pocket, just not something your character could normally do. But if you're in such a situation that not only does the situation call for it, but the way that you describe it, like, just absolutely makes sense in character, for your background, in everything that's been happening, I will rule of cool it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the kind of person that is like, if you're a fighter and let's say like you're, you know, you guys haven't leveled up yet, but you're close, right? And you're in the middle of a fight and one of your buddies goes down, like actually goes down to 0 hit points. I'd be like, you know what, dude? Like, if you're just like, I have nothing, I can't do anything. Like, I just saw my buddy go down. Like, is there nothing? Do I not have like a burst of energy, an adrenaline rush, nothing? And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll let you in the middle of combat. Yes, if you want to bring that up and just like absolutely go balls out with that, I'll give you this. I'll let you level up. I'll let you get a quick little level up in. I'll let you get some extra hit points, and then I'll let you kind of come back and, you know, in this like customized second wind in this one moment, because that sounds like what a hero would do. It sounds like you're basically just kind of going, you know, wide-eyed and the world just disappears and you just kind of almost in your own little fit of rage. Not something that you would normally be able to do, but is something that like thematically would make sense. That's not something I'm going to always let happen. It's not going to be something that I let happen in just well, you're about to die anyway, so you go ahead. But if it absolutely falls in line, if all the stars align that makes sense, yes, you could say that I would rule of cool it, because it matters more that falls in line with what's going on with the story than, oh, but you can't do that because of this. Like, let's say you're a wizard and you're out of spell slots and you see your buddy go down. I'll be like, hey, how much hit points do you have? In this one instance, I'll let you burn 10 HP for every spell level that you want to cast right now. Like, you just saw your buddy go down. If you got 60 HP, you can cast a 6th level spell. Go right ahead. Like, just that idea that I don't have spell slots, but I have it in me to burn my own physical energy, my own life force because of this fit of rage I'm in. Those are things that I'm just like, yeah, we're not codifying this. I'm not saying that from here on out as a wizard, you can just say, I'm not going to burn a spell slot. I'm just going to burn 10 HP. That's not what I'm saying. And that's my point, right? It shouldn't be this, oh, we now have this brand new mechanic that you can just abuse. It's in that situation, it calls for you being able to do something extraordinary, but don't rely on that as a guarantee in the future. And those are, I guess, what you can call my rule of cool moments. But beyond that, I think it's much more of a negotiation of, does it make sense for the rules? Does it make sense for the situation, the mechanics, the storyline, the narrative? If it all aligns, I don't think it's a rule of cool. I think it just makes sense. So hopefully that hopefully that answers the question. Yeah, so small bonuses can be done as long as the rule is done logically. And again, this is also done in good faith and on the honor system. It's not like every time you want to do something, just because you explain it complicatedly, I'm going to always give you bonuses, right? If you can't just automatically always get a +4 to damage and +2 to hit, just because every single round you're like, but now I'm going to do this, but now I'm going to do this, but now I'm going to do this. It's not the whole point is, that kind of stuff as a DM, I would rein in, right? Like, narratively speaking, you can't always be amazing and extraordinary, but it does mean that if you're creative and if you're paying attention and if you're trying not just to win and do the best, but if you're honestly trying in earnest to make the situation the best for everyone, for you, for the other players, for myself, it will get rewarded. Because to me, progressing the story is more important in the way that everybody's on board with than, are we following the rule to a T? Because again, this is a world where the things, in my opinion, the things that are set in stone, right? I've talked about this with Kage, with like spells. In my opinion, the concept of a spell, like on a scroll, the concept of a spell that you can learn is that is not the most mystical, amazing, arcane thing to ever exist. In High Point, if you can buy a spell scroll and learn that spell, that is the most watered down version of that spell to ever exist. That means that not only was someone able to create this spell, but because like the idea of spell crafting, at least in High Point, is like you have to be able to learn how to control the magic. Once you can do that, you have to learn how to control it in a way that you can do it repeatedly. But then you have to be able to teach someone that. So the idea of a spell scroll means that someone learned something so well enough to the point they could recreate it identically, but then they had to be able to teach someone else to be able to do it the same and repeatedly, to the point to where they could teach anyone the same thing repeatedly. So imagine, if you take that into account, imagine what that means for a spell. When you learn Fireball, imagine the first person to learn Fireball and how many times it took them to teach someone else, and how many variations of Fireball existed before they were finally able to narrow down and boil down the exact specifics that anyone capable of magic can reproduce the exact same effect. That kind of sounds like a can of Coke, right? Like it kind of sounds like a manufactured process. And that's how it is in High Point, is spells that anyone can learn are the manufactured magical versions of those things. So that's why in High Point, small variations in spells and how they work are fine, because it makes sense that each person, especially who's really in tune with magic like a player is, it's a lot of those situations where it is going to slightly alter the way that magic works, innately, right? If you are attuned with magic, that's why I don't mind, random effects in great moments of stress, because that moment of stress is distracting you from that perfect rigid spell. And therefore, those little things, you're putting more energy into it, you're giving it a different idea, you're giving it a different thought process. Little errors can happen that make an effect that fits the situation. But that also just shows you that magic is much more complicated than people realize. When you learn a spell, you've learned something engineered specifically so you can get off the exact effect that you expect. But with that means that there's so much untapped potential. There's so many variations out there that people don't know about just because magic's chaotic and wild. And that's one of the ways that I also am able to justify it, is that if you are innately magic, why isn't it that in times of great stress, you wouldn't pull a spell off identically, right? It just doesn't make sense that you wouldn't get a little bit of extra out of it if you're in a dire situation. So yeah, I really think that when players utilize the situations and when they get creative, again, it's not a consistent every moment they try to do something they should be creative, but when they try to be creative in the right moments, I think that giving them one-off bonuses just makes the story better. It makes them truly feel like they're the heroes, because why would you feel any different if any one of your situation, right, can do the same exact thing? I feel like that's what separates like heroes and players, is if I have two wizards on the same team, what makes them different if they can do the same spells, right? But those little tweaks, those little personalized, unique changes, because of their individualized player creativity, that's what's going to make their character that much more unique. That's why at High Point, I tell people, I have yet to see it, and I don't believe it's possible for any two people to play the same character. I just don't think it's possible, because you could build the same character identically, but as you play it, the moment you begin gameplay, they will begin to diverge almost immediately, because the world High Point doesn't exist and doesn't work the way that, oh, I have a wizard, so I'm just going to play a wizard. Everything you do reacts. Two people couldn't possibly make all of the same choices, talk the same way, have the same personality. Like, all of those things will lead to small variations in their gameplay and small variations in the way that their abilities work. And that's what I really think is special about High Point, is everyone's experience is truly unique and of their own, not just because of the abilities that they're able to do, but what they're able to do with those abilities. I really like that. That's actually a really good way to say that. It's not about that's such a good way. I like that. But yeah, that's kind of my overall idea of that. Is I think Rule of Cool is fine in the context of break the rules for the story. I think it's fine most of the time, but for me, I do it, but I wouldn't necessarily always categorize it as that. So I hope that helps. All right, Hoilepa, welcome. I'm glad you stopped by. We are about to cut it off here, but if you have any burning questions about High Point, let me know. I'll answer any final question that you might have. Otherwise, I'm probably going to be wrapping it up. I got food on the way, and I'm kind of out of topics to talk about. But yeah, if you have any, I'll let you chime in with any final question you might have. Anything about High Point that you want to know, feel free to chop it in chat. But if not, I appreciate that you stopped by. I know it's kind of difficult for you with the times, but always appreciate you. Yep, just woke up. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day ahead of you. You got any questions that you've ever want to ask? Go and have the meal. All right, I appreciate you, Halepa. I hope you have a great and wonderful day ahead of you. Good morning, and welcome to your new day. Anyway, I appreciate everybody for showing up today. Soul, thank you for all of the amazing questions today for this AMA. I want to do this more. I really want to do more times where I just kind of sit here and do questions from chat. We do have the AMA channel in Discord, so you can always go and post questions there for ones like this, but I do want to do more of these whenever I can, where I just sit here and answer any questions that y'all have. Yeah, you had to bring up some big questions, but I appreciate it. But if you have any more, write them down, keep a list of them, put them in the Discord or whatnot, and I will get to them on another AMA at some point. But yeah, first off, we're going to go and get out of here on Discord or on TikTok. So, hey, TikTok, thank you so much for anybody who did stop by for more than 2 seconds. I appreciate you. We'll try to do more of these, but I will see you guys later. Cheers. That should have ended the live, I believe. Let me double check. How do I check if I'm live? I don't think I'm live anymore. I shouldn't be. Okay, we are no longer. Alrighty. But yeah, thanks, Soul. Thank you so much for all the questions. That was actually a lot of fun. You had some great questions for today, so I appreciate that. But yeah, we'll end it there. I'm glad we got to do some D&D content today. That was really nice. But yeah, I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. I hope you guys have a great week ahead of you. Kage should be back with us on Friday. I don't know what we're going to do, so stay tuned for that. And as always, yeah, if you see us online doing some games throughout the week, stop by and give us a shout. Otherwise, I hope you have a good rest of your night. Hoilepa, have a good rest of your day. Cheers.